then back over there, we have another spacious area that's going to be an outdoor garden spot. Hi, I'm Chef Tish Tansil, the host of URBANesque Living, and this is the new space where URBANesque Living is going to be. Now, first we have to renovate it. You see this area back here? That's going to be a wonderful community garden. I'm going to be growing vegetables, we're going to have outdoor cooking space, and we're going to have events back there. It's a wonderful area. And this Hey, how are you? I'm Chef Tish Tansil, the host of URBANesque Living. Thank you for joining me on another season of the show. This year we are out of the kitchen and we are into the great outdoors. There are vacant properties all over the city of Detroit. You might have one next door. Well, you can take that vacant lot and turn it into your garden oasis. And that's what this is going to be, my garden oasis. And you are going to be able to join me on URBANesque Living. I'm your host, Chef Tish Tansil. Hi, I'm Tish Tansil, the host of URBANesque Living, and today we're starting a new journey in the show. Not only are we going to be cooking in my kitchen, but we're going to be visiting with some area authors. And one of the first authors that we're going to be visiting with is Pastor Jimmie Compton, who's written this book called Jesus' Great Commission Reaches Africa. Stay tuned for this special edition of URBANesque Living.
Hello, my name is Jimmie Compton. I'm here on URBANesque Living, and I'm here to discuss my new book, Jesus' Great Commission Reaches Africa. It's about early African Christianity from the 1st to the 6th century. It's about men, women, and children who made contributions and sacrifices that helped shape Western Christianity. Not much has been discussed about that. This information hasn't been suppressed as much as it's been ignored. So I hope you stay tuned for our discussion.
It's never too late, that your moment is right before you, that you have to have belief in yourself. Don't allow anyone to define who you are. Know that you have everything that you need within to be the person that God created you to be.
Okay, now tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm married. I'm father, grandfather, and pastor teacher at Hope Bible Fellowship here in Detroit, Michigan. I'm a retired software engineer. As you know, I'm an author, and I'm a native Detroiter from elementary school through college. And I have a bachelor's arts degree in anthropology and sociology at Wayne State University, a bachelor of science degree from American Western University. I'm a graduate of Birmingham Bible Institute, and I have a master's degree in pastoral counseling from Ashland Theological Seminary.
Okay, so how did you go from being in computer science to being in theology?
Well, computer science, I started majoring in computer science, and then I got a job offer in it, and I was learning more on my job than I was learning in school. So I changed my major for anthropology and sociology because my father, he taught all of us anthropology. He taught us evolution. He had the books and the illustrations, and so I was curious. However, beyond college, that's when I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and that's when my theological curiosity perked, and from that point, I just wanted to know more about God's people. I wasn't raised as a Christian, so that was strictly studying anthropology based upon my upbringing. Like I mentioned before, my father, the way he taught us and raised us. So I majored in anthropology. My sister majored in anthropology, and before I was a Christian. It was after my graduation from Wayne State University that I became a Christian.
Okay.
So it wasn't a matter of anthropology or evolution factoring in my theology. It was a matter of my theology correcting evolution.
Okay.
So the worldview was shifted. And just as the Bible talks about in Romans 12, 1-2, don't conform to this world, but be transformed. And so I'm a living testament of the fact that God's transformation of someone who believed in evolution can be changed radically once they embrace the truth of Jesus Christ.
And now, is that the subject of your books?
That's the subject of this book, Chisel Me Lower. It talks about my spiritual formation.
Okay,
And
so
that
do you want to
shift.
talk about that book first, or should we talk about your other book first?
Well, I want to talk about Jesus' Great Commission reaches Africa.
Okay, so we'll talk about this one for right now, because I wanted to get to that one too. Okay, so tell us about that book, and tell us about why you're here.
Well, I'm here to tell the Detroit Christian community that there has been a faith community in Africa that existed 3 centuries before the Roman Emperor Constantine's so-called unification of the church. That African Christian community existed 900 years before the kingdom of Timbuktu in Africa. That Christian community in Africa existed 1,300 years before King James commissioned the compilation of what we know as the Bible. But that African community has been neglected in mainstream Christian church history. It mentions some of the characters, but it doesn't give visibility to the contributions of this early African church, which shaped the foundation of Western Christianity and Western Christianity's institutions.
Okay.
So I'm here to discuss this 122-page survey that captures the contributions and the sacrifices of early African Christianity.
Okay, now the question that a lot of people are going to ask is, how did Christianity get into Africa in the first place?
Yeah, and that's covered in this book.
Okay.
I mean, that's a That's a story that starts in when we read the New Testament. We read about the African Christians that were in the church in Acts 13 with Barnabas and Paul. Lucius is mentioned from Cyrene, that's in Libya. Also, when we read about the Ethiopian eunuch, when Christ was, I believe it was Philip who witnessed Christ to him, and he took it back to Ethiopia. Mark introduced the gospel of Jesus Christ in Alexandria, Egypt, and also in Cyrene. And also in Carthage, Christianity was introduced. And my book, and there are other books that talk about how it was introduced.
Okay, now you're saying that after Jesus was crucified, his disciples went out into different parts, and some of those parts were in Africa. And that's how Christianity started in Africa?
Those who Jesus gave the Great Commission to, so it weren't only his 12 disciples, but it also included those who his 12 disciples sent. They went abroad to spread the gospel, as Jesus says, to the uttermost parts of the earth. And there was one who, Mark, and it's believed that Mark studied and learned and received the gospel under Peter, but he brought it to Alexandria, Egypt.
Okay. Now, in your book, you go into how it spread from there?
In my book, I talked about 2 points, Carthage and Alexandria. It's not clear how Christianity sprung up or was introduced to the city of Carthage. But it's clear that when it did, it spread fast. But Mark is responsible for Christianity entering Egypt. And the Coptic Christians today attribute Mark as the progenitor of their church, the founder of their church. So it hit Africa through Carthage, and it hit Africa through the Mark in Egypt. And also it hit Ethiopia through the eunuch.
Okay, now, a lot of what you're saying is new to me, and it's probably new to a lot of the viewers. How do you find this unknown information?
Okay, this information has been laying as low-hanging fruit available. It's not hidden, and it's not secret, and there's nothing new about it. I'm not the only one that's written about it. And so this information hasn't been suppressed as much as it's been devalued. America has a lot invested in the status quo mainstream Christian format and Christianity from the Western point of view. And so there's not a great incentive to talk about early African Christianity because the Western Christianity is established. And the sad thing is those who will benefit the most, I believe African Americans, from a study of early African Christianity seem to have a lukewarm response to any study that's contrary to Western Christianity. And besides, it'd be very difficult for, during the slave trade, for slave masters to declare or classify Africans as subhumans and at the same time make it generally known that the ancestors of those Africans shaped the religion that Europe had adopted as its own. So there's no incentive to discuss what's available. I list over 200 sources of information that anybody could get access to and read for themselves and find the same things. What I'm doing in this book is giving greater visibility and a succinct, concentrated format whereby a study, a class, and attention can be given to the contributions of early African Christians. The early African Christians, they had been destroyed and wiped out by the Vandals. That's a Germanic tribe that believes in the heresy that in the 7th and 8th century took over the territory that was occupied by early African Christians. By the time of the slave trade, those Vandals had just about wiped out the early African Christianity in that region. And then after that, we have the Arab invasion with Islam taking over. So by the time the slave trade, those slaves didn't know anything about Christianity. So it wasn't a situation where we have the Christianity of the slave owners and the Christianity of the Africans. But my point is that there's no incentive to even today to talk about early African Christians, because not only are African Americans or Africans viewed as being second class by the larger society, but in order to maintain that view of Africans as second class, mainstream will not make it common knowledge that these so-called second-class Africans, their ancestors, taught them Christian philosophy, Christian theology, and helped them establish Christian institutions. When you read through the items in my book and you read about the scholars, the institutions, and the thought of early African Christians and how it shaped Western Christianity, you'll see why there's no incentive today for mainstream to give emphasis to it, because it would only reveal the source and the origin of our Christian faith, the African roots of the source and origin of the Christian faith.
Now, how are you hoping that this book impacts the reader?
What I hope it does is, I hope it allows the reader to remove the whitewash. It's been a whitewash that our Christian faith is of the European origin, that it's the white man religion. I heard someone say that before. And the amazing thing is that there are so many highly social conscious African Americans that believe that whitewash. They actually believe that Europeans are responsible for Christian thought, Christian doctrine, Christian institutions. They believe the whitewash. And so my hope in this book that it will remove that whitewash. I also hope that it also removes the lie that many people have embraced today, that Africans didn't know anything about Christianity until slave trade. What is the spiritual takeaway from my book? You know, when I was, towards the end of my book, my heart was heavy by all of the African Christians that were put to death. And I was reading in Fox's Book of Martyrs. He had this one blurb about African persecution in Africa. And it said that Africa had a peculiar type of persecution. And there were millions of African Christians that were slaughtered and murdered. But when I read in Revelations chapter 6, verse 9, it talked about there were souls under the altar that cried out, when are you going to vindicate us? And the response was that to wait a little while longer for, basically, to paraphrase, for others' souls that will be persecuted and shed blood for the name of Jesus. And so that was written in Revelations, but it was written before the completion of persecutions in Africa. And so my spiritual takeaway is that I believe that God had the early African Christians in mind when he told the souls that who had died and shed blood and who were beheaded for the gospel of Jesus Christ. We told them to wait because there will be others. I believe that God had early African Christians in mind when he told them that. That's my spiritual takeaway.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your books with us today. And can you tell us where we can find your books?
Yes, you can purchase my book at lulu.com, and it's LULU.com. And when you go to the site, you search for author, you can type in Jimmie Compton. That's one way to do it. Or you can just write the Africa Stop at gmail.com, and we'll provide information.
Do you have a Facebook page?
Thank you very much. You can find us on Facebook at the Africa Stop. Just type in the @ sign, the Africa Stop, and it'll take you straight to our page.
Okay, are you planning on having any book events or signings at your church? Or?
I do plan to have signing. Also, I'm developing a 10 to 11 week course on Jesus' Great Commission reaches Africa. And during that course, I'm going to talk about the social political atmosphere of the early African church. My book goes into people and events, and I'm going to put some context around the people and events through the class. So if you email me at theafricastop@gmail.com, you can receive some information about registering for the course. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. A bit more.
We're down here at the Detroit Riverfront getting ready to do our fitness expedition, fitness walk, fitness training. We look forward to doing more of these in the near future. If you're interested, contact us via email or text message, and we look forward to seeing you. My name's Aaron Scott, teammate of 3 Elite Athletics.
And I'm Angela. Aaron and I are working together today. He's going to give you some more information.
There you go.
And he's going to let you understand what we're doing today. He's going to talk with this young lady about setting up and finding out about injuries and seeing if anything is going on with her. So here we go. We're getting started. Come on, Aaron.
Well, this is one of the first assessments that you do when actually you meet a new client. You want to ask the proper questions that can not only help them in training but also prevent existing injuries or help stop the injuries that they're already having. So certain questions that every trainer should ask a client, especially a new client, when you finally get to know them or when you're first introducing yourself to them. So some of the questions that I asked, do any clients have any existing injuries? And if they do have any existing injuries, then what can we do from there to move forward? Was there proper rehabilitation? Did they go to physical therapy afterwards? Did they have an OT? Are they seeing someone of that nature? So then we can properly program their workout according to where they are, so that we can meet them where they are to help them to get to where they want to go.
Okay.
Yeah. So, do you have any injuries?
Yes, I had a partially torn meniscus, partially torn rotator cuff, and a L5S1.
Okay, and when did you tear your meniscus?
Meniscus was about a year ago.
There you go, rotator cuff?
maybe 2 years ago.
Maybe 2 years ago. And then your lower back.
I've been in a couple of car accidents, so it's been aggravated by different events.
And are you physically active now?
I walk.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And how's your diet or how's your nutrition with that?
I eat well.
Well,
I don't like water.
Well, you got
Which is bad. I know. I hate water. I drink it because I have to, but I hate water.
Okay, well, as long as we're moving towards a more healthier lifestyle, and as long as you're doing something by, walking, that's awesome too as well. So then we'll just move from there, and then we'll just do an assessment, see where you're at, and we'll take it from there. All right, cool. Think about it. But if we were to say right now, okay, I don't walk, but I'm going to go walk 3 miles with a group, that's where our injuries comes in, and then people start saying, well, I don't want to do anything physical fitness because I always get injured, I always hurt myself, you know what I'm saying? So a warm-up, if I was getting ready for a walk or getting ready for, say I'm walking with the breast cancer, I always think of the things that I can do. I think of, where's my knees and hips? Am I properly doing my warm-up? Properly doing my leg swings? These are certain things that, that you can do that may take 5 to 7 minutes. Right. So let's find you want to find something that's stationary, that's standard, that doesn't have a lot of ease, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right here, stretch. Take your time, take your time. You're gonna feel a long stretch between the hamstring all the way down to your calf. Powerhouse back in the day, or Bally's back in the day, and I always saw, the older generation, and I'm like, why is he doing all that? Now I see why they sit in the corner like, keep living, young blood, and now I have a total different respect,
right.
Of everybody's fitness level or where they are.
Absolutely.
Wherever you are, that's where you are. Perfect. If you want to take it off to the next level, that's when you find other sources. If walking is where you at, be the best walker out there.
The best walker.
And walk with pride, walk with integrity, walk with faith, walk like, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what works for me. And don't feel like nobody's rushing you. Don't feel like you're not doing enough, because you are. Think of the people who wish they could get up today and walk.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Oh,
yes.
We ain't in nobody's hospital bed, we ain't in nobody's grave.
Amen.
So if walking is where I'm at, I'm about to have the best walking experience, hands down, until we get to where we want to be, So I'm glad we got out here and did this. This is amazing. No matter, I love groups, love group fitness. I'm so proud of you, but it's that person in the back.
Yeah.
It's that person in the back that's struggling.
That's what keep them in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's struggling physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually with their workout. And those are the people that you have to connect with. And it's hard. So everybody now wants to pack 100 people in a room and charge them $5. It don't work like that. It's people in the background that need help, that need instructions. Yeah. That's what we're here for. Yeah. You can micromanage fitness all you want to. You can't beat a personal trainer. Not a good personal trainer that knows, that can look and can focus and give you assessments, give you building blocks. Fitness is now like, okay, I just want to go do something. But it's some people who actually need help.
Yeah, it's a lot of people that actually
need help. Period. And that's our job. That's what we're good at.
Right.
You gotta have that eye. You gotta have that eye.
Do.
That's why the first thing I asked her. Injuries.
Yeah.
What hurts? Yeah. Surgeries.
Yeah.
Things of that nature. How many people are being asked that?
Not many.
So you got to get back to that. And that's one thing that,
All
praise
right, well,
God.
awesome job today.
Yeah.
Yay, we rocked it.
Right.
Thank you.
Right,
Yeah.
so we did good.